Welcome to the Star Podcast.
Whoa. Star Podcast.
Welcome to the Star Podcast, hosted by Nat. Each week, we share tips and stories from safety, trucking, and recruitment, and everything in between. Listen now. Thanks so much for listening to another episode. Today, I am talking to Adam, and if you're familiar at all with Northern Academy of Transportation Training, you will definitely know Adam. Adam is a trainer there, and he has been on the podcast before giving different tips about air brake training, AZ training, all different things to do with transportation. But today he's joining us, and he's not only giving us some safety tips regarding motorcycles, driving around them, or also motorcycle tips in general, but he shares some stories about his experience riding, and it's just really interesting, and he's always very entertaining. So this is definitely a great episode to give a listen, and so listen now. Well, I just want to get started by welcoming you back to the podcast. You've done a previous episode, but I think it was a few years ago, so welcome back to Adam.
Thanks for having me.
So I was hoping, just to get started, that you could share a little bit about yourself, just in case anyone hasn't listened to your podcast episode or is not familiar with who you are.
Like you said, my name is Adam. I am now the manager of training and development at NAT, and I've been there for this November will be 13 years, and wow. I've played many roles, mainly in class, a lot of theory. I'm teaching a lot of offensive driving programs, hours of service regulations, the theory that is part of the full 6-week or 4-week AZ program, including some of the D stuff as well. And I also teach in truck, but I also have signing authority with the ministry for air brake construction, so I also do that. And we host a couple of day classes and that where people can come and obtain their air brake endorsement, whether it be for truck or truck and trailer, or even motorhome and whatnot. So there's a few different avenues I've got my hands in when it comes to all things commercial driving, if I can say that.
Absolutely. I got to go on a ride along with you, which was very fun. So that's another thing that you've offered to people. So that's very cool.
Right. Yeah.
We're here to talk all about motorcycles, motorcycle safety. So I was just hoping, because I've never even been on a motorcycle, can you just explain the thrill of driving and riding motorcycles?
Well, let me start off with saying that you have no idea what you're missing then. And if that's the case, if you've never been on one, it is a feeling like no other. Probably about 16 years ago, I started to dabble in motorcycle riding. So this is before I actually became a trainer. And for the why I got into it was purely just out of curiosity, wanted to have some fun. I can say that all those sleds and quads and that and other toys are fun. There is nothing, in my opinion, more enjoyable than that whole cliche, the freedom of the open road, if I want to say that.
Yeah.
But it's a very cliche statement, but it is a thrill like no other. There's such a massive community of people that enjoy the same passion in that. That's pretty well why I got into it. Is I wanted to be part of something bigger than just, bombing around in the bush by myself and just getting into something that, with groups and stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So when you think back to, I guess, the very first time, maybe when you were getting your license, were you scared at all?
I think because I was, what was I doing at the time? I think I was still driving Sudbury Transit. So I was working for the local municipal transit buses. So I had, experience of being on the road, probably more so than the average motorist. This is my job. Like I drove truck for a decade before that. I think my confidence in riding the bike became stronger as the years went on, also being a trainer. So beforehand, yes, of course, I was a little bit nervous because that as soon as you throw your leg over it, you're at risk, and it doesn't matter what speed you're doing. You can be going slow, fast. You're going to get hurt. There's no doubt about it. If you fall off, something's going to hurt because there's just such a lack of protection, right? So yeah, there was some nervousness there for sure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your first trip and how it felt?
When I first started, I started just bombing around in Lively. Now, I went with a slightly larger bike than most people would, with their first motorcycle. I started with what was called a Honda VTX, which was 1300cc. A lot of people, when they might start with a little 250 450 or a 350, maybe even as high as like a 750cc. But I'm also a big dude, so being 300 and, probably at the time 350 pounds, you're not going to find me on a small bike like that. So I had to start off a little bit bigger. So I just started puttering around lively within the township, stop sign to stop sign, light to light, go down to Tim Hortons, get a coffee. And then I started, just a little bit of highway back and forth to work and that. My first trip that I did, it wasn't even a trip. It was more like a test of self. And it was, I went from lively, and my plan was to go to the Tim Hortons and Wendy's that's located at the 17 and Highway 6 turnoff for Espanola. Okay. And so about 45 minutes, we'll say, from lively. And at the time, my bike didn't have a windshield on it, so I was taking all the wind in the chest and whatnot. I made it as far as Nairn Center, and when I got to Nairn Center, which for those of you listening is probably about maybe at the halfway mark between lively and Espanola, and that was enough. Like my hands were sore from gripping the handlebars, the wind that was beating on the chest. You're kind of white knuckled and stuff. So by the time I got there, I was like, okay, this was good. It's time to turn around and head back. But that would be the feeling on my first trip. Every trip after that was outside of the local lively or back and forth to work area, it got easier and easier as time went on. But yeah, that was the first my first experience of like actual nervousness in that.
So do you think, as a trainer who teaches and practices defensive driving, you said rules of the road, like the dangers and everything like that, has that helped you during your time riding?
In the later years, absolutely, yes. First of all, my license is my job. So this is now that I'm a trainer. So as the years went on, you start to protect your license more and more. Your driving is a reflection of the protection of your license, if I can say it that way, right?
Right.
So to know that my household, my wife, my kids, everybody, including myself, relies on my driver's license, which is what keeps me employed and has put me in this position. So of course I'm not going to take any chances. I'm not a speed demon. I'm not going to drive recklessly. So that aspect has helped quite a bit. But also driving defensively is to anticipate or not react when something does go wrong, but it's to anticipate what am I going to do if something goes wrong. So to have a plan in the event that, what if this person cuts across my lane? What if this person juts out on the highway from a cross intersection and didn't see me coming? How would I react to that and to prepare for that, right? So that's what's helped me big time over the years as I've become a trainer, is because all these things is what I want to convey and teach to other students. So of course I want to lead by example and practice that in my own life as well.
Absolutely. So are there any aspects of riding that even now, after you've been riding for many years, that you still get nervous or worry about?
In contrary to what I just said, now that I'm closer to, like, it's been about 15 years now that I've been riding. As you get more comfortable, you also become more complacent. And now when I throw my leg over the bike, I feel just as confident driving it as I do my own vehicle, as I would if I got into a truck. Say I'm confident in my own riding abilities. There's animals on the road. I've been through every single rainstorm I've driven or ridden while it was snowing and that. So my own riding abilities doesn't worry me. It's everybody else on the road. So and that's not to say everybody else that I'm operating around isn't a good driver. I may pass, out of 20 drivers that I pass on the road, 15 of them are excellent drivers. But it only takes the one, right? And and that's where the driving defensively kind of comes in. So yes, of course, every time I get out there on the road, there's still things that I have to watch for. I got to remind myself you're not invincible, despite what you may know or how much skill you might think you have. There's always one little mishap that could happen that you didn't notice or not expecting that could ultimately ruin your day, right?
So there's been a lot of truck-related accidents, like on the news and Facebook. I know I see a lot of different things just online. Does that play a part in how you operate your bike around larger commercial vehicles?
There's an expectation of common sense with most motorists that, when they make a turn, you expect a signal. When they change lanes, you would expect in a perfect world that they would shoulder check. You would expect, certain behaviors and stuff on the road. And some of the things that are unexpected that can catch you by surprise when operating around commercial vehicles is sometimes their length. Maybe you pull out to pass and you're like, oh, they're a little longer than I thought they were. Sometimes the cargo securement, as I'm passing trucks or I'm behind trucks, I look at the way that the straps are over top of the cargo, or if there's any loose cargo on the deck. That could be sometimes the reason why I pass, is because I don't like being behind trucks that have, and not just big trucks, anybody that's carrying anything, whether it be on their roof in a trailer or on a big truck. I don't like being behind them, because if something lets go or dislodges, then it falls into my path, then you're pretty well done for. So operating around the trucks, things like wind gusts, the way that trucks break wind and how you maneuver through that, you feel it through the bike with what they call buffeting, and you feel it through the handlebars, you feel it in the seat. I mean, it's brief and only the time it takes for the truck to go by. But in my earlier years, if I saw a truck coming, I would tend to sort of lean towards the right-hand side of my lane. And I still kind of do, depending on the type of truck that's coming. And in the truck world, it's not hard to judge a book by its cover, where if a truck looks like, it's in terrible condition, it doesn't look like it's been maintained, the trailer looks terrible and stuff, you're not going to want to spend much time around that truck, because you kind of think, right, when's the day that something on that vehicle lets go, right?
Yeah. Have you yourself ever had any close calls while you've been riding, like that involved a commercial vehicle? Yes,
I was behind a truck at one point down in the Kawartha Lakes area. I was going to visit my father-in-law. The truck had a full load of aggregate of some kind. He was pulling out of a quarry. When the trucks go in there, they pick up all kinds of stones and marbles and whatnot here and there. The truck was slow to accelerate, so there was room to pass, and it was a legal passing area, so I went to pass the truck, and as I got closer to the back end before getting into the oncoming side, it must have threw a stone or something, and I took one of those stones right to the knuckle, the handlebars, and that is a pain that I haven't felt. I took a robin right to the center of the chest one time, and that was painful enough, knocked the wind right out of me. But that stone to the knuckle, at least it was on my right hand, which is where I do most of my fueling, or all the fueling and braking. So your left hand is where you have to, squeeze the clutch over and over again. So it didn't affect my squeezing hand too much. But man, that was painful. But as far as other close calls, I dodged a couple of bear cubs once on 144, dodged a deer on old 169 around Bala. I've had vehicles pull U-turns in front of me that pull off to the side of the road, and then they look in their mirror, they don't see me, somebody coming, albeit, be a smaller motorcycle. They pulled U-turns in front of me. But I've never been involved in an actual collision. I've never fallen off the bike. I've never dropped the bike. And the moment that you think you're above it all and you know everything and nothing can touch you, something's going to happen to quickly remind you that you're not the one in control anymore. Like, it's
so true.
I think the term that I used in the TikTok was you have to have a healthy fear of the road.
Yes, absolutely. No matter how much experience you have, for sure.
Keep yourself humble in that and don't think you're above it all.
Can you share with anyone who's listening, who's a truck driver, advice for them while they're driving their truck to consider when they're operating around motorcycles?
It's mainly the term see and be seen. It's not hard to see the truck, but sometimes it's hard for the truck driver to see you, especially if you hang out in, the multiple blind spot areas that could be around a truck. Trucks are slower to get moving. They're cumbersome. They're kind of annoying to drivers. People don't know, what it's like to be a truck driver if they're not. So they don't understand that the general motoring public, they hate being behind you, beside you, in front of you. So they'll try and get around trucks as much as they can. But if you're the driver, you're the one that's potentially operating this 100,000-pound weapon that if you're not careful with it, somebody can get hurt. And the thing with a motorcycle rider is that there's no question, if something happens that's going to involve a motorcyclist, they're going to get hurt. But anything more than just a little bump or a nudge is going to result in some kind of a rash or a broken finger or collarbone or broken bones or ultimately death, right? All I can say is that during the months, probably mid-April to mid to late October, some people will stretch it that early and that late. Motorcycles are out there. People will try and get every single week and day that they can out of it before they have to park it. And it's just all a matter of keeping a keen eye and watching for anybody on the road, especially those little guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess maybe the advice might be similar, but what advice would you give to fellow riders when encountering commercial vehicles on the road? Any advice there?
Yeah, we watch the wind. The wind just depends. And it depends on the truck too. Like some trucks will put out a bit more, like buffeting wind than another one. Like a truck that has, let's say, a whole bunch of material on the deck, the way that it's not loaded in such a way to like minimize aerodynamic resistance, if I can put it that way. There's going to be a lot more swirls and a lot more wind that's broken around that vehicle, as opposed to, a sleek and sharp looking truck that, has some decent angles and curves on it that kind of splits through the wind nicely, right? You get those trucks out there that are pretty much a glorified brick, and they're going to break wind a little heavier. So just take your time around them. Don't get too close. Like, that's one of the mistakes. That's why I got that that rock in the knuckle, was because I got too close to the truck before I decided to pass, coming up on the back end. If I had gotten into that oncoming lane earlier, then probably wouldn't have happened. But give yourself some space around them. Understand that they don't move very quickly. They're slower to perform their maneuvers, so be patient. And just watch for things like freight on a deck. Truck drivers, not all of them, most are pretty good, but truck drivers I've seen in my travels on the bike have a tendency to toss some stuff out the window sometimes, whether it be a bottle, a littering, maybe the fast food garbage, stuff like that I've seen kind of fly out the driver's side of trucks. So it's just a matter of giving yourself some space. Be wary of those trucks that look like they haven't been seen by a technician or a mechanic in many, many years.
What's the best place for people to reach out if they maybe want to follow you on TikTok, or they want to reach out, they have a question? Where should people follow you or contact you?
I would probably say TikTok is the best one. That's the one where I've got, I think if I just looked this morning, there's close to 4,000 followers on TikTok now. So TikTok, I think it's just Munch at Nat. A lot of people call me Munch because I eat a lot. I'm always snacking on or munching on something. But I think it's called Munch at Nat. And the Facebook one is Munch and the Bunch. But the TikTok page is mainly me. It's a bit of an insider's look at, the training stuff, things that, or discussions I want to have, how-tos, and there's some goofy videos of my personal life in there as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll put the links to that for anyone who wants to give you a follow. But thank you so much for joining. I think it was interesting to have your view because you're both rider and you also teach and drive trucks. So you have like a good view of the road and safety and all of that. So thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Star Podcast.
Whoa. Star Podcast.